to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you all. And
Kevin is coming, but Shelley is not this evening, right?
correct. Yeah. So we do anticipate Kevin being here anytime. But he's asked that we go ahead and we do have a quorum. So I just want to clarify that because we have a quorum, a majority of us can take action on any item, even if
It's 2-1.
it's 2-1. Right. All right, so there are some modifications to the agenda. We're moving a couple of items.
We're just moving 7.3.1, Matilaha's electives and new course names. We're moving that ahead of 6.5. So it will follow our presentation on cultural literacy initiative. It now will become 6.5, and the public hearing is now 6.6.
Okay, with that being said, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. And approval of minutes. So we've had a lot of meetings lately. So
We need to move on each one, or can we?
I think we can do them all, although I'm not sure that we were all here for all of them.
Oh,
I think you
correct,
might
I was not
not-
here on the 13th,
Right. So why don't we do,
separately.
yeah, why don't we do the 13th separately?
I'll move to approve the minutes from March 6th, March 23rd, and April 8th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. And then for March 13th?
I'll move the approval of March.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's a majority. 2 with 1 abstention. All right, student representative report. Stella, welcome.
Thank you.
So I was just asking, we have changed the format a little bit, where the student rep is mostly just participating throughout the evening rather than a presentation. But I was just asking Stella earlier today if she could just, she's a senior, so the end is in sight, the play is over, spring break is behind us, to maybe just kind of share a little bit about whether people are nervous or excited or stressed, or they're hearing from colleges, and maybe tell us some of the colleges and,
Okay.
kind of share what you've heard.
Yeah, for sure. I would say that senioritis is definitely kicking in most seniors. No matter if they're planning on going to college or not, everyone's kind of, really, the gears are really slowly turning in our brains. But most of us, almost everyone has heard, I think everyone has heard by now from all of the colleges. The UCs were the last, and Berkeley was the last, and that came out at the end of March. I'm going to UC Berkeley in the fall, and we have 2 other Nordhoff students. Jem Ruff, he's our valedictorian, and Abby Runyon is our co-salutatorian. And so they are both going to Berkeley. And then we have some undecided people, but we have some really amazing schools that people are going to. UCLA, Cal Poly, Davis, UC Santa Barbara. We're kind of scattered all around, but Irvine, UC San Diego, SDSU. So a lot of public schools, but people are all really excited. I think that's really exciting, but also really nerve-wracking for a lot of us. It's like we all got accepted, and we were super excited for the 10 minutes, and then we realized, okay, now we have to find a roommate, and now we figure out how we're going to pay for it, and we have to, hear how much money we got from each school. So it's a little bit of combination of excitement and stress, and I think that's the same thing for the end of high school, because we all have AP tests coming up in 2 weeks and senior projects, so it's a lot of work toward the end, and we're all really trying to get through it. But yeah, it's really exciting. It's a great time, and I think we should definitely, everyone should be proud of how the seniors have represented Nordhoff this year. We've gotten into some amazing schools, and it's definitely record-breaking from the past couple years, so it's exciting.
Great, thank you. That was,
Anything else?
that was fantastic. I feel a little guilty saying, is there anything else? But
I
that's a
think
great
the rest
report,
of
so I appreciate it.
Yeah, great.
And then if you have comments on anything else as we go through,
Perfect.
let us know. All right, moving on to public comments. So Angie, you wanted to speak on 6.5, so we'll wait
Yes.
for that.
Okay.
That's good. 6.1, approval of the 2019 to 2023 Superintendent of Schools contract for Dr. Tiffany Morse. So we're asked to approve the contract for Dr. Morse. There was a negotiation, successful negotiation, and we have a contract before us.
That's right. So it's recall my contract was largely, as far as the language in it, was a continuation of Hank's, and now this is a continuation of mine. So nearly all the terms are identical. It is a 4-year contract, just as I currently have, as well as Cheryl and Hank had before us. That is the longest allowable by state law. We are required to read this last paragraph, so if it's okay, I will.
Please.
Superintendent's compensation is broken into 3 parts: salary, benefits, and other considerations. The annual salary for the 2019-2020 school year is $180,000. The superintendent received the same ancillary benefits provided to all employees. Many of these, such as employer contributions to CalSTRS retirement, are required by law. The projected fringe benefits cost, which include major medical health coverage, dental insurance, vision services plan, total $18,381, and CalSTRS retirement contributions total $30,780. So again, as far as the substance of the contract, it's mirrors mine and mirrors Cheryl's, and then those are the actual compensation components.
Okay, great.
Would you mind just covering quickly, I had that question about, I asked you personally about the vacation days.
Uh-huh.
And kind of explain, I think for somebody out there who doesn't understand it, maybe the breakdown of how it carries forward and how you pay for it.
Sure.
Do you remember?
Yep, absolutely. So, as part of this contract, so what's typical in public school administrator contracts is that they are either on a set number of days of a contract for the year, number of work days, or they receive a certain number of vacation days. Either way you look at it, what's customary is that you have anywhere between a 220 and a 225 day work calendar. What we're doing with Tiffany is a 25-day vacation allowance in addition to 14 holidays for the district. So when you add those two together, it changes because each year, some years have 260 work days, some have as high as 262, but it works out to be roughly a 223-day contract. Again, depending on the year, it might actually be a little bit higher than that, but so that's right in line with what you'll see superintendent contracts across the county. Because she gets 25 vacation days, if she's not able to use all 25 days, then she does have the ability to roll them forward into the next year, as all of our employees do. For all management employees, they receive their vacation accrual at the beginning of the fiscal year, so she will get her 25-day allotment on July 1, which she can then draw down through the year. She's only allowed to carry forward 15 days into the next year. I think it's very likely that the first year of a superintendency, I can say for myself, you do not take many vacation days, and so she'll likely be rolling forward many of those days. Anything in excess of 15 days that roll forward from one year to the next will need to be paid out in the year in which it was earned. Okay, so it's capped at a 15-day rollover, which when combined with the 25 days is the 40-day cap that you see in the contract. Hank did not have this language in here. This was new that our attorney put in there for me. If you recall, Hank had 80 days accrued toward the end of his time, and so he spent a number of vacation days during the final 6 months or so of his contract with us, and then had a 40-day payout on his day of separation. So one of the things that we're attempting to do is, rather than carry that liability until the time at which one leaves the district, we draw down and encourage the taking of vacation days on a regular basis.
I think it's also worth noting that we're at the very low end of superintendent salaries for the county.
This will be the lowest salary of any superintendent that has responsibility over more than one school. So as you guys know, we have a number of small school districts in the county that are vary from size of what Summit was, of around 50 students, up to some of our other elementary schools when you look at Mupu or Mesa. But of any school district that has more than one school, this is at the absolute lowest end. In fact, the closest comparison that we have of a school district that recently hired a superintendent is Santa Paula, and the starting compensation 4-year contract was $230,000. So, so when we say that it's lower, unfortunately, it's right on par with our teachers and classified staff when it comes to being significantly lower, not just you know, in the ballpark. We are unfortunately compensation-wise across the board lowest in the district or lowest in the county.
But we get to be here in Ojai.
We
So,
have this view.
any other comments, questions?
Well, I think, you know, that in and of itself is significant, right? That we retained the distinction of being the lowest paying multi-school district in the county. And I think, frankly, that speaks to the attractiveness of the staff and the schools to get someone of the caliber, and the students, to get someone of the caliber, of Tiffany's caliber for that kind of money. You know, you gotta wanna be here, and you gotta wanna work with the people here, and I think that speaks to that, so. I'm comfortable with the salary. I don't know, could we get any lower than the bottom?
So I'll move to approve the contract for Dr. Morris.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Moving to item 6.2, the approval of the Citizens Oversight Committee Annual Report, and to recognize the members. So first you have to do your work. So if you could report to us, that'd be fantastic.
I have not appeared before the board, so.
Yeah, if you come up here, then you have a mic, and those watching at home can.
Hi, I'm Dennis Court, and I've served as chair the last 2 years on the committees, the end of my 4-year period, along with Phil and a number of others that are mentioned. So I'm just going to briefly highlight the report. The attachments, I think there are some attachments in your packet, but I'll assume everybody's looked at those and avoid going into much detail. I realize
Yeah.
you have a 282-page agenda and a 5 o'clock start. So, so basically, the Citizens Oversight Committee is responsible to report to the board, to the community, on the application of these funds and whether or not they are meeting the sort of conditions or constraints that were put on them when they went to the public to vote. So we're, the overall point is this is another very clean, good report that we're giving the board, the community. The performance of the administrative team has been outstanding. They clearly have the objective to honor, you know, the conditions of Measure J. And I can tell you that this is not always true when public entities pass bonds. And so there's no exception. The report is in 4 sections. I'm not going to talk about section 3 and 4. That's our role and background information that we continue to put out because it only comes out once a year. New people come in and they're like, who are these people? What are they doing? So that information. What I would like to talk about briefly is just the audit findings, which are on your page, trying to go to 6.2312, I think it is. So basically, every audit has been like this, but it was no exceptions in the audit. That meant that there was no inappropriate expense that was classified as a Measure J expense that should have been like in your general fund or some other place. What's interesting about that too is that because of how many dollars the audit group is looking at, who is very experienced, I actually know this firm, I've watched them for years. They audit your district general funds and other funds, which is good. They looked at 80% of all the expenditures. That's incredibly high. You won't see that number very often, and what we believe is that number will come down as the district is gearing up for some more major projects and major dollars coming through. They're not going to be able to spend the time to go through everything, but a normal audit would be something like, Andy, 15 to 20% sampling.
15, 20, yep.
So it's huge sampling. And of that sampling, they simply did not see anything that should have not been there. Okay. And the next item is projects completed or in progress. We just want to report, because this audit goes back to last June 30th. By the time the audit's conducted, it comes to us. The board sees it, obviously, separate, and then we see it. But since that covers $1 amount that's quite a bit smaller, really the district through February 28th has spent about $8.458 million. This audit covered about $3 million, a little over that in one fiscal period. So, and the district has projects coming up that, Andy, are what, 10 million?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you're gonna see, quite a bit of momentum here in the next year. The incomplete DSA projects, we started commenting on those originally. I think they came to all of us as a surprise, right? Sort of something that sat around from years ago and accumulated. And so really, there's been tremendous project, 32 items. You're now down to really one. Even though we discussed these, Nordoff is really essentially done. Matilah has an issue, which is percentage grade, dealing with ADA issues, okay? And the board will, I think, soon, hopefully be approving some sort of contract this summer to get that work taken care of. And once it's done, then the DSA will release that final item. And so I see the district will finish these, all of these 32 items, although essentially 31 are done. They'll finally complete this, I think, by the end of the summer. It's
That's huge.
I know, it's a tremendous effort, and I've never seen this before, but I think it is somewhat of a cause of not having the money available in the Ohio Unified School District to tackle these issues. One of the things the committee recommended, which occurs later on, is that, and right now we can go to the next page, the district now has planned to spend $33 million out of the 35 on paper. And of course, you'll have course corrections and all kinds of issues. But the committee strongly felt that don't encumber all those funds. As you get towards the end, see how much money you really have, and make sure if you have a DSA eligible project out there to get it completed and get it done. Because in the case of Matilah, the law has changed since the district opened up any work there, and so now it has to meet new conditions. And so we strongly advise, and the administration I know is following this. I'm not aware of the discussions with the board, but the suggestion is it's okay to have a little bit of unplanned money as you get towards the end. And because you, as you know, you have plenty of projects to do, but you don't want to have 32 open DSA items. Again, it's taken a lot of resources and time. So the final item we want to talk about is really to just say, the committee, just to say thank you and acknowledge to the administrative team and really the board about securing a second bond manager. We felt that this was really, really important, that the amount of time and effort that goes into these projects. And then in hindsight, the idea that Andy, who has been here since day one, who has had a tremendous responsibility for this, not typical of a superintendent really in a district. With his departure, we think that your team of, let's see, it's Adam and Alan. Well, we say the 3 A's, because we got Andrew. But I think you've done an excellent job in very difficult times, and you've got two people that I think are really going to pay dividends to the district. and also get this work done, because it is disruptive to the schools. And there is an inflationary pressure and other issues that go on. So I think we believe, and some of us who have been there 4 years, we believe that the district is really in great shape right now in terms of its resources, as long as neither one of them retire or, you know, decide to make a career change. But, so that's really our report. The rest of the items are just some information in detail. There's some attachments that we think are interesting. All of those things are at the district's website, so you can just click and take a look. And we're very happy, and on behalf of Phil and Linda and the members that are not here, I think when we started, thinking back when we started 4 years ago, kind of like lost in the forest, it's been a good experience, and I think you guys should be very proud as a board as to the use of Measure J funds, how you're administering it, and your resources going forward. Is there any questions?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That's good.
So good to hear.
Yeah, it's great to hear. You have some things to say.
Yes.
And then I have a
before-
couple of things to
Yes,
say.
I'm gonna walk around this way. I'm gonna invite Phil and Dennis up. And I do want to acknowledge and thank Linda as well, Linda Jordan, who's also a COC member for us. She's wearing 4 or 5 different hats as she's here tonight. So just a reminder, the COC committee that we formed in 2015 was the first of its kind that OHI's ever had. It came out of a law that changed in 2002. So when we had our prior bond measure, we actually didn't have a COC committee because it wasn't something that really was created by the state at that point. The law requires that this group meet oftentimes only twice a year with a very limited focus of looking at expenditures and looking at the audit report and ensuring that we are compliant with what we said we're going to spend the money on, as Dennis talked about first. But I know that this board has certainly heard it, and this community hopefully heard it tonight. But we asked a lot more of this committee since 2015 than was statutorily expected or required. And Phil and Dennis, you guys both have done just an incredible job of serving this community. We had many more meetings, and again, those 2 a year. At minimum, it was 4, and a couple of years we had 5 or 6, plus quite a few meetings in between where we'd have a subcommittee. Dennis was very involved in. In fact, again, each one of our COC members have their stamp of impact that they'll have when it comes to Measure J projects. Dennis, I know with attaining the nutrition hall in Matilaha, certainly as well, and Dave Ittner and Jeff Palmer and so many of the guys who and women as well who have been with the committee since the beginning. Some of them cycled off in 2017. This now is the remainder of the team who's cycling off. But on behalf of the district, we're just so grateful for your service, again, going so far above and beyond what the initial idea of the COC would be. But I can't imagine having gone through the past 4 years without your guys' assistance. So thank you to Dennis. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And you said that we should be proud of some things. I just want to say how proud we are of our citizen oversight committee. And how much
Picture
you
real quick with
contribute.
Linda. Everyone with the
Picture, yes, thank you.
Thank
Could we have the school board members also stand in the back? Would that be okay? Sure. Sorry, if we can get you guys all in the same picture.
Yeah, come on
Oh,
out.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, come around. Kathy? Oh, no. Thank you, guys. This isn't as prestigious as the Ojai Valley News, but it's the school district news. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Phil.
I just want to say it's been a real privilege and pleasure to work on this committee. We were very fortunate to have 2 excellent presidents, with Jeff Palmer and Dennis Thorpe, just great guys. And thanks to the board for their support, and it's really been great working with you.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
Is it,
So now it is time to ask for approval to accept their report.
Right, do we have a motion to,
I'll move to
Approve.
accept.
great?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. All right, 6.3 Nutrition Services Report.
And as Julie comes up, Phil and Dennis, feel free to step out if you need to. We know it's a busy night for you guys. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Jesse, if you're able to.
We're babysitting grandkids.
So what is to turn off one of the?
Cheryl, do you mind flipping
Oh, okay,
one of the
it's-
lights? The other one? You got it.
Well, thank you for having me this evening. My name is Julie Chesson. I'm the Director of Nutrition Services, and I'm here to present to you an overview of our program. And I'll be talking about our program on behalf of Nutrition Services as a team because we have been working really hard together to create different recipes for our students this year. So, as Jesse's putting the PowerPoint up, I'll just briefly go over what I will be talking about today. So I'll do a brief overview of the program. I'll talk about our administrative review that we had this year that was conducted by the California Department of Education, our efforts with farm to school, and then finally recipe development. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and go off of the pages since you have it in front of you. Oh, here we go. No. So just a brief overview of our program. Our free and reduced percentage is 49%, and that's based off of family income and household size, as well as direct certification, which is a process that's done. It's a cross-reference with other government programs. And we serve about 500 breakfasts per day and 700 lunch per day. And we did implement a new program this year. It's a after-school program snack over at Miners Oaks. Since they're the school site that has the highest free and reduced percentage, we wanted to pilot it there at that site. And basically, all the students that attend the after-school program receive a meal for free. And we serve approximately 36 of these snacks every day. So this year we were selected for an administrative review. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a review conducted by the California Department of Education every 3 years. It's a very thorough, extensive review of our program. And what they do is they have an off-site review as well as an on-site. For the off-site, it was a very extensive survey of questions that had to be done prior to them coming so that they're able to assess what they need to look for when they come on site. When they came to the sites, they observed at both Matilaha and Miramani, where they observed breakfast and lunch. They were also observing our meals to see if we were compliant with the federal and state guidelines, as well as the serving components. And we did a fantastic job. I'm really pleased with my staff. We passed the tests, and they had a bunch of positive comments about our organizational skills, and they had great things to say about us, so we were very pleased. So Ojai Unified is very involved with Farm to School, and we are active members of the Ventura County Farm to School Collaborative, which is a collaboration of 6 other school districts in the county, as well as nonprofit organizations such as Food for Thought and local farmers. And through these efforts, we've been able to purchase 70% of our produce locally. And we also have implemented a program called the Harvest of the Month, which is it's an opportunity for us to be able to highlight a produce that we purchase locally once a month. And for this month, we highlighted Pixie tangerines, well, Pixies, because we're here in Ojai. And And so we were able to purchase pixies from Miramonte. We purchased them last week, and we've been serving them to our students district-wide this week. And we have also implemented nutrition education in the classrooms. Right now it's occurring at the kindergarten level at Miramonte. And once a month, the students receive a nutrition education lesson, and then they're able to taste the harvest of the month. And so this month they'll be tasting pixies. And then they also have an opportunity to come through the lunch line and taste a recipe in our salad bar. And so here's a picture of a recipe that we prepared for November, which was persimmons. We are also partners with Steel Acres, which is a farm that leases property from Poco Farms in Miners Oaks. And for the month of December, we purchased carrots from Steel Acres as our harvest of the month. So not only are we highlighting a seasonal produce item, but we're also highlighting that we're sourcing it locally as well.
I just want to interrupt for a second, because when I first joined the board, we were not able to buy anything locally. And this is just so fantastic. We've come so far in,
Yes.
In that period of time.
Yeah. So it's a great benefit not only for the students because it tastes better and it's more nutritious, but it also is a benefit to our community by keeping the funds local.
And the environment for not trucking it
Yeah.
thousands of miles.
And then that's our kale salad that we served in January.
If I can interrupt you, Julie,
Sure.
My monthly volunteer in Christian's classroom is for the nutrition education in the classroom. So I do the food tasting and the little lesson Miss Sears and I do together. So when we did kale, there's 24 kids in the class. 18 of them said they enjoyed raw kale. It
Wow.
was nothing like peer pressure. The kids were like, oh yeah, this is good. Yeah, this is good, right? And so they all were eating raw. We did give them a little ranch after they tried it initially to dip it into, but we had 18 kindergartners, my son being one of them, who loves raw kale.
That's more
that's
amazing than getting out of the food.
Yeah.
You mentioned at Miramonte, but isn't there nutrition education all over the district as well with Food for Thought?
They do garden education. So it's a little bit of a different program. So the nutrition education is occurring inside the classroom. With Food for Thought, they are doing their education lessons in the garden with the students. So it's also occurring at that point too. So I'm hoping to expand the nutrition education in the classroom district-wide. Before it was at all of the elementary schools, but we did have a nutrition specialist that was funded through the Ventura County Farm to School Collaborative who helped us with those lessons, and the teachers decided to take it on themselves at Miramonte. So that's why it's continued at that site. So another highlight I'd like to share with you is our recipe development. When we are considering new recipes, we consider the utilization of our USDA foods to help keep the cost of the foods low. We also consider student preferences as well as sampling the recipes. So we like to make the recipe, sample it with the students, and then alter it if needed. So what has made us so infamous by Miss Janassi is our Thanksgiving meal.
I have much more.
And so this was a meal that we served district-wide, and students loved it, and parents were able to come and eat with their child. So we had lots of parents come. This is a sample of our holiday meal that we had in December. It's a tamale pie with pozole, and the students love the pozole, so we've continued to keep that recipe on the menu throughout the year. And most recently, we made a homemade chicken and vegetable alphabet soup, and and it was very well received. Food for Thought helped us sample this item during recess, and the students loved it. And as you can see, we did utilize USDA foods in this recipe, so we were able to keep the cost low. And this is what we served. We had grilled cheese sandwich with the soup.
That looks so delicious.
So some of the student responses, delicious, the best soup. It's so good, I just can't resist it. And this one is my favorite. I hate all of the vegetables, but I ate it and it's really good. Any questions?
Do you sample at one particular school or because of the kitchen in
Um,
terms of the recipes?
So we've been sampling it at the elementary sites. So that we've been testing these recipes at Miners Oaks, and then sending them to the other elementary schools where we've been sampling them at all the elementary sites, except for San Antonio.
So Julie, you mentioned that we were at 70% local.
Yes.
Two questions, just curiosity. How do we compare to others? And is there any possibility of, increasing that, or is that kind of the practical limit?
Well, in Ventura County, I think that we've done a really great job in our farm to school efforts. I think that we've changed the mindset of the vendors, or influenced, I should say, the mindset of the vendors. So the vendors are actually bringing in more local items for us because of our demand. And I think that this 70% is at a really good point. I think it's at a higher point.
Yeah, that seems like a lot.
And again, that's because of the collaboration that we have within the county and the efforts that we've made with the produce vendors.
Thank you.
And is there potential to increase that? Was that your second question? I always think that there's potential for improvement. So, yes.
Great, thank you.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to ask do you think that, because all this sampling is going on at the elementary, do you think high school students are aware that this delicious stuff is happening this looks pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know because my mom makes me eat her lunch every day. I would assume that they would be enjoying it, and high schoolers are probably much less picky. I would hope. They're more. Man. Well, when I was in second grade, it was like you had to strangle a student to get them to eat a zucchini muffin. But I don't know.
That's
I'd love
not
to
what
try
they
all this
did, though.
food.
Not in our
It was more
schools.
like peers strangling each other. But yeah, it looks great. I would eat it all. So maybe I'll just tell my mom to stop packing me a lunch. But yeah, it looks awesome. And I think, Nordhoff students are definitely opinionated and can be picky. So I can see that they would be, a little bit.
Plus you have the opportunity to go off campus.
Yeah.
So it's harder to compete.
Yeah, definitely for the upperclassmen. But it looks great.
We really appreciate all you're doing. This is fantastic stuff.
Yes.
And it's great to get these reports. Are there some upcoming things? You've told us what's been done. Are there some things happening soon that would be interesting to hear about?
To share. Well, I'm always looking at different recipes that we can try. And I'm really thinking about the Matilaha Kitchen Project and how great and fantastic that's going to be and how that's going to change the department as a whole. I don't know if I should be sharing this now because the project is just getting started, but I foresee Nordhoff makes fresh bread every day, and I'm not sure if, she doesn't eat breakfast or lunch at Nordhoff, but she makes fresh bread every day, and so that was the inspiration behind the Matilaha Kitchen Project, is to expand that bread making district-wide. So that kind of gives you an idea of where the direction that we're going.
Yeah. Great to hear.
Okay, well,
Good
thank
job,
you.
Julie. I think
Very
that's
well
it.
done.
Thanks a lot.
Good job.
Did you have a public comment on this one, or?
This was just a report. Oh, do you want to say something? Yeah, you can comment. Yeah, absolutely.
This is your item. This is why it's on the agenda. You made the
Well, then I
request.
want to comment.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm Angie Janassi. I'm teacher at Topa Topa, kindergarten teacher, TK teacher. And every day for the last 17 years, I have served food to the students. As I teased with Andy, I'm the ketchup, and I was the ketchup person. I still am the ketchup person. You know, do you want ketchup in that? Anyway, this last year has been a transformation, truly a transformation. The pozole has been such a hit to the point where it showed up and everybody went, what is that? And the kids that had pozole were, not only did they go, yes, but they ran over and they opened it up and they put their onions and their cilantro and their cabbage in it and closed it and ran out. And now the kids all, and I help with first and second grade as well. And the kids come in and we say, well, you can have a cheese quesadilla or pozole. And I swear the whole group goes, yay, pozole! And they all get mine. I mean, it's just, it's miraculous. Even to the point where this poor man giving an assembly last week, he was doing a water assembly, and I was serving and we were done, and I said, have you eaten lunch? And he said, no. And I said, come get the pozole. You have to eat it. And I said, do you eat meat? And he said, yes. He came over. I paid for his lunch. Said, this is on me. Go sit and eat it. And I guess he went back to Francis and said, if I had only had this kind of food as a kid in my cafeteria. So I feel like I'm promoting it, but it's not me. It's the food that's promoting it. So, and it's like that every day. There's a new pasta salad, there's a kale salad, and the kids never used to choose Italian dressing. Now they choose Italian dressing. It was always everything with ranch, right? It has transformed. So I'm so happy. I'm such a foodie, obviously, and I'm just so happy. And everybody at Topa's happy, the kids, the parents, teachers, Francis. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. And you can still comment later.
Yeah,
good. All right, so we have item 6.4, the presentation on cultural literacy initiative.
Yes,
Dr. Knott.
that's me. So I wanted to start just by saying thank you to all the support that we did receive from the community. There was so many emails that were sent, so many meetings that we had with individuals, people really connecting us with programming, connecting us with the free resources that you can find online. And, you know, we couldn't have done that without our community coming out to help us find those things. So I really appreciate that. I especially want to say thank you to the Ojai Alliance for Education Equity. I know we have some of the members in the audience here. We had several meetings and discussions with them, and certainly some of their commentary that was even provided here during our board meetings. That really did go into the plan. We took a lot of things into consideration, and changes were made in the plan because of that rich discussion. So thank you. In addition to gathering input from the community, site leadership has met on several occasions to determine the appropriate programming for our plan. And then we've had the leaders go back to their school sites and discuss it with faculty and staff to tweak and talk about what we should add or remove from the plan. So this is definitely only our initial plan, and I say that because we do want this to be a document that we continually revisit. Always on an annual basis, but there's no reason to wait a year. You know, if people have ideas or input, we want to take those into consideration. If there's edits or enhancements that we can make to it, we want to make sure that we do that. I also want to really emphasize that by no means is this plan an exhaustive list of all that we do in our district. We do so many things beyond this, and we do celebrate that we have independence at our sites, right? When teachers get excited about something or staff gets excited about something, they can bring programming onto their site at any time. We just recently had Miramani attend, their 5th and 6th graders attend the Museum of Tolerance. We also had Topa visit with their 6th graders about a month ago. You know, we still encourage that and celebrate that the sites, choose as things come up to do whatever they'd like to as programming. This is more just a look at what we commit to and are guaranteed to do in our district, so that we have something to point to and that we have a document to look at together, right? Because it's really hard to work with stakeholders when we're talking about things that we can't see concretely. So this becomes a concrete list that we can look at and work on together. So in the plan, you see in the beginning, of course, I did mention a few things that we've already done as a district. One of the things that was really exciting is bringing the Anti-Defamation League educators out to Nordoff and do a 3-hour training with all of our certificated staff, all of our teaching staff. It was a training called Hate and Bias, Tools for Responding from the ADL, and we received such excellent feedback from our teachers. They were so happy to participate in that, and their commentary was, we need more of this. So we'll definitely be looking at other workshops for them. The ADL has a variety of options. And I just was able to today see the Topa Topa, Landy Coffer's presentation at Topa Topa this morning. It was very well received by the 5th and 6th graders. He did his presentation, of course, on the civil rights movement. He was able to participate in that, and did talk also a bit about Cesar Chavez as well. And so, again, really well received by the students. So pleased that we are doing those things.
Now, is that something, and I know, one of the comments from the group that had been here before was that, well, if you happen to be at this teacher's classroom, you'll get something, but if your child is over here, you might not. Is this the Lenny?
Landy's in the permanent plan for all 4 elementary sites, and we will be bringing him back annually.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll point to that in a second. I wanted to explain kind of the idea behind the plan. It's really a tiered approach at a cultural literacy and anti-bias education plan for our district. The first tier is using social and emotional learning curriculum and restorative justice approaches to really build community and provide a way for all of us to get to know one another and to build empathy and to learn about each other. So as well as just in the social and emotional learning curriculum, to help students develop tools for handling conflict, and for solving problems as they arise with their peers and with everyone that they come across on campus. So that's kind of the first layer, and then we of course are bringing in our anti-bias lessons, which you can see throughout the plan. So really structured lessons in each grade level that are developmentally appropriate for the students, and then really focusing on visiting some of the historical injustices of the past and using history to provide opportunities for students to learn about those past issues, but also to learn about cultures and learn about other people, and really add again to that cultural literacy idea, that competency of knowing about other people's culture. The more we know, the more we can have be culturally responsive and be empathetic for others. So,
Is that your, and third, we will ensure students, that comment on our page 2 of 5?
Yep.
Because that, I think, is from what I've witnessed and what the group was talking about, is that the textbooks aren't really covering the reality of the historical issues, whether it's, back to Native Americans or the civil rights movement. So are we systematically bringing something, giving something to teachers that's saying, in addition to what might be in the textbook, we studied the missions in 4th grade, but I remember it briefly touches on, and a lot of Native Americans got sick and died, but.
Right, so actually the curriculum is very different now. So in the new framework, as you all know, we're piloting social studies materials across the district, and part of the new framework is that the materials need to deliver the content from multiple perspectives. So you're already going to see that shift in all of our new curriculum, and I just met with the Matilaha staff who has been piloting 2 programs, and that was one of the things that they mentioned, is not seeing enough of multiple perspectives in the 2 that we're currently piloting. So we're really looking at how to bring in new curriculum that is going to ensure that multiple perspectives are part of the discussion in the classrooms. So as far as This programming, yes, there's certainly pieces of that in there, and this is where we would certainly be looking for commentary from our stakeholders and from our teachers to determine what else we could add to make that even stronger. Okay, so if you look at the materials that I have provided, what you're going to see is a little bit of discussion about Toolbox, which is a social and emotional learning curriculum that we are starting to use at Miners Oaks. It's going very well. We're getting excellent feedback from the staff, the parents, as well as the students. And the rest of our elementary teachers are looking at whether or not they want to go ahead and implement Toolbox next year as well, or go through a true pilot where we look at some other programs and then vet them and decide which one we want to adopt. So, but again, it's sort of like we have a pilot happening in our district right now with Miners Oaks beginning to implement, and it's getting really good reviews. Restorative justice approaches is something that we've been trained in as leaders. We're looking at sending a team of teachers to a 3-day conference at VCOE the week after school gets out, and we are starting to implement those practices currently, but that will grow stronger as the years come. And then in the plan, what you see by grade level, and I wanted to explicitly state that what you will see as you go through the grade levels, that high school is a little bit weaker as far as what we were able to offer or so far have in the plan for programming, and that is for two reasons. One, it is a little bit harder to find time in the high school day to teach a 20 to 30 minute lesson. If you're going to do that, you're taking away from a 52-minute period or however long the periods are at Nordhoff today. So they're giving up curriculum for a period. What you have at Matilaha that makes it very doable is next year we're adding the advisory period. So on a daily basis, there's going to be an opportunity to weave in some of these lessons. And then in a self-contained classroom like in elementary, it's much easier for teachers to carve out a half an hour of time in a week, for example, to move into an anti-bias lesson. The second thing is, during our conversations, through all these different meetings, and I believe it was even stated here by our student, who was here that night, exactly. That it really does need to start in the younger years. The more we can do in the early years, the hope is that cultural literacy will be there amongst our high school students. And then certainly we will be using restorative justice approaches at Nordhoff, and we do have things built in, especially in 10th and 11th grade, but it is a little weaker, and I realize that. But again, welcome commentary and input if we think there are things that we can add there. So again, what you're going to see as you go through the different grade levels in the elementary years, we did go into the different free resources and identify lessons that we thought would be appropriate to teach with those students. So the elementary teachers all worked on this together in their grade level teams, looking at different lessons, and started by identifying 3. We also identified anything that is already being done as far as celebrations, as long as it was being done district-wide. And so, again, I didn't want to put things into the plan that only Miramani's doing or only Topa Topa's doing. It's great that they're doing those things, but I only listed things here that we have all committed to making sure that we do each and every year. As you move into 5th grade, you see that we have put Lanny's presentation there. That's bolded because it's an assembly. And so we do plan to bring him back annually for as long as we can. It was, like I said, a well-received presentation today. Again, in 6th grade, things shift a little bit because we have that advisory period. What we're asking the teachers to do during the advisory period, and they do have room for it because the second step program that they're adopting for their social and emotional learning curriculum, which is also going to be taught in that advisory period, there's not enough units to cover the whole year. So it's really a good opportunity to bring in 10 anti-bias lessons and add them. So the social and emotional learning pilot committee is going to be meeting, is it next week?
We already met, we met last Friday.
Okay, and try.
A list, and they ranked the top, sort of the top choices, so we have a really good library to start looking at.
Great. So we will eventually title the ones that will be taught in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, but that's still a work in progress.
Can I ask a question when you're on that? Because I know it says up to 10,
Mm-hmm.
but up to 10 means you could do 5, or there's a commitment to 10.
We
or
really,
one a month,
I'm
or-
looking at, I would really hope for 10. It kind of depends on the length of the units, because each one, depending on what they pick, it could take multiple days. And so we also have to look at the second
Okay,
step
so
curriculum.
units, not, I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
the other thing that we looked at, just to add on to that, is that we have some space, obviously, about 10 weeks that we have to fill in, but we're thinking that some of the things that we do in an assembly setting, perhaps we can do in a smaller group setting with the advisory, such as like our Matilda Pride Assembly that we do at the beginning of the year. Instead of having that in the auditorium with, 180 kids, maybe we can use the advisory for something like that. It will be more intimate, more impactful. So I would take care, for example, of 1 week per se, right? And then that would give us 8 to 9 weeks left that we can play around with the lessons that we already looked at last Friday to see what we can implement in those weeks.
great. And then, what we plan to do, the hate symbols assembly that we brought to the 7th and 8th graders this year in January at Matilaha was also very well received. And so we do plan to bring that one back annually. Next year it will be given to 6th and 7th graders since they will not have had it. And then after that annually to 6th graders each year. In 7th grade, we were already doing it, so I felt the need to add it and make sure it's in here so we know we're doing it. The Disability Awareness Workshop that Janine Murphy and Laura Van Acker do with all the 7th graders. And then they also have a storyteller that comes to Matilaha every year and shares his story, which I think will add to our cultural literacy piece. There are also some pieces in the curriculum that are used in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade that we mentioned here. Again, I only mention things that are promised to be covered every year. So it doesn't mean that's the only thing that they're doing that would fall into this category, but if a teacher might drop it or add it in any given year, or one teacher does it, the other one doesn't, then I did not add it to the plan because I wanted to make sure that whatever's in here is guaranteed to be done. And then in 9th through 12th grade, Nordhoff will continue to do what they did this year, which was a very robust See Something, Say Something week with quite a few activities. And then the Greater Good Leadership course is a new course that's going to be offered next year. I realize that it's a leadership class that's only going to be offered to a handful of students, but I do really think it is going to have an overall impact on the campus. When we met with Michael Mulligan from Thatcher, the previous head of Thatcher, the idea here is that as we really get good at this, what you're doing is picking a cross section of kids to join that leadership team and group, and those kids do become role models back out in the campus. And one of the goals of the class is to have a really great impact on the entire school culture. So, might not happen in year one, but we are hopeful that that will be a part of the outcome of that course. We had a connection with Jewish Family Services in Santa Barbara. We realized that we could bring a Holocaust survivor to our schools as a free service. And so that actually happened during the See Something, Say Something week, but now it's going to happen on an annual basis for both 10th and 11th graders. And again, you can see some of the curriculum that they're planning to make sure that they hit in 9th, 10th, and 11th grade as a permanent guaranteed portion of the curriculum.
For as long as there's our.
As long as we can, yeah.
Yeah, actually,
Hopefully someone is filming.
you know what they are, and you know what is also really neat is in some of these contacts that we got from the community, we had 2 people reach out that were children of survivors, but have maintained their story through slides and a show, and so they offered actually to do presentations as well. So I do believe the stories will live on even when we no longer have survivors. So.
And hopefully to emphasize in the future, because Arlie was saying, the ones that were more effective were the more intimate setting ones rather than the big assembly in the gym.
We do see that, yeah. And so I'm also hopeful that, like Javier was mentioning, we might choose to do things more in that advisory period than anywhere else, especially even that was part of our planning for the hate symbols assembly. Instead of doing it school-wide, they did it by social studies classes. So I think the biggest group was 45 students, but most of the sessions were with 30 students, which again really I think helped with the impact of the programming. Questions?
Yeah, as I was looking through this, I like what I see. As a baseline, I think it's really good. One thing did occur to me that, a lot of the issues that we've experienced involve social media.
Yeah.
And I didn't see that anywhere in here, and I was wondering if that's something that's covered elsewhere, because there's a lot of pressure. There was just, a whole bunch of research came out recently about Twitter and how the culture of Twitter is mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
That it promotes meanness, it promotes polarization. And you can get dragged into that really easy, I know. And so it seems, Is there somewhere else where we're discussing that in this context?
I can't point to anything specific. I know it is heavily on our minds, and actually when the elementary teachers met and I was there for that portion of discussion where we were talking about picking lessons, social media was one of the first things that came to mind, and how important it is for us to think about how we educate students about social media and the uses. And so I'm glad you mentioned that as something that we should input into this plan. I do think that we should extend the focus. We do have a speaker coming
up
yeah.
in a couple of weeks in July. It's going to be for our kids as well as for the parents. It's going to be a Tuesday for the kids, and then the evening event the following day for the parents on responsible use of social media.
Yeah. So we'll see how that goes, and then potentially keep it as a permanent part of our programming. And then, but certainly we need to be adding that into the elementary level. We're seeing students, unfortunately, on social media at younger and younger ages. So.
I'd like to discuss in the future the idea of requiring a civics class at Nordhoff. I mean, I looked at this requirements, in terms of social studies. I don't know enough, but I'd like it to be a discussion. There used to be, right now we have government and economics, but then you've got AP government, so if you put it in that slot, what happens to all the AP students? But this is more than is required by the A through G, right, what we're requiring history. I think, where is it? History, 2 years required at the UC schools, whereas we were requiring 4. So maybe we take a look.
It's not 4, it's
4 years
we do.
is what it says. Graduation, minimum graduation.
Oh, it's health required.
It's including
health.
health.
Is included. Yeah. Okay, yeah, it's health and world geography. I was gonna say 3.5. I didn't realize health was part of it.
Right. But anyway, it's not for today, but.
Yeah, that might be a good item to, so we can understand what the requirements are and what there's time for and what we could do.
Right. I would think that we would have to give something up to add it, but that's certainly a worthy conversation to have.
And obviously, I think the student, we'd have to hear from students. They'd be like, what? You're getting rid of that? That's a great class.
Right.
We kind of want to hear from them
Yeah, absolutely.
in the future.
I will say I volunteer at Miners Oaks in the morning, and they've been using the whole toolbox thing.
Yeah, tell me what
I'm in a 5th and 6th grade class, and normally the 5th graders are gone by then because they leave within like the first 15 minutes. But the 6th graders, we spent a long time. We did the whole breathing exercise and seeing if we could tune out everything around us, and it's just really sweet because they're taking it really seriously.
Yeah.
And even 6th graders, I know, they, sometimes they think things are silly, or when you're all doing it as a class, it feels awkward, but they're really getting into it. So I think it's working well, and it's fun for them, and it's kind of interactive, and it brings, I think, once you involve the entire class and even the teachers doing it, it definitely makes the kids want to do it more.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the teachers wear lanyards. All the staff wears lanyards with the 12 tools, and then the teachers, part of the program is that you model it. So when you are stressed or dealing with conflict, you might say, as the teacher, I'm going to use my breathing tool, and you take a deep breath, or, so it really is, being embraced school-wide by everybody, so.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah,
That's great.
absolutely.
Our next item, we're moving up 7.3.1, so the new courses for Matilaha.
Yes, that's also me. Javier is certainly here to chime in. It has been a team effort. Primarily, the majority of these courses are being brought to you today just because of the transition from 6th grade from the elementary schools to Matilaha. The core courses are obvious ones to bring forth for all of you, but certainly the electives had a progression as far as how we got to offering the ones that are before you today. We started first with looking at our expertise amongst our teaching staff, not only the teachers that are moving over for the 6th grade students, but also just of our 7th and 8th grade current teachers, what kind of expertise did they have? Javier did a little survey with them, asked them, you know, what they thought they either might want to teach or what they thought would be interesting to offer for students. And then with all of that, we did a survey through Google that was given to every single 5th and 6th grade student on their elementary campuses. And my understanding is that really generated a lot of fun discussion. They started to really get excited about transitioning to Matilaha as they started to look at all the different electives that were potentially going to be offered. We had, I don't know, almost all of them fill it out. I mean, we had hundreds of kids respond to it, so you could tell that they were excited about it. From that survey, we then met with our 6th grade team as well as a handful of staff from Matilaha that joined that meeting and just started to look at, you know, what would we be able to offer, and then what correlated with the interest amongst the students. So from that, we ended up with this list that's being brought forward to you today. Just to make sure everybody knows, I know you guys know as the board members, but we're doing all 6th graders, which is different than 7th and 8th graders, get the opportunity to take 2 electives. Their core classes are going to be during 1st through 4th period. 5th period, which is when the vast majority of 7th and 8th graders currently take their elective, that is when 6th graders are going to be able to take an elective that they'll be in for the entire year. But because there's not a PE requirement, the PE requirement, the minutes for PE is not the same for 6th graders or elementary students as it is for 7th and above. So because we have that opportunity and we know that exploring as many things as possible is what's advised for this age group, we wanted to really give them the chance to have a second elective. So in 6th period, all the 6th graders will have 6th period PE, but they'll take it every other week. And on the off week, they'll take an elective that they choose to take. So it'll kind of like it's kind of like having 1.5 electives, right? One for a whole year and then the other one week on, week off in the 6th period slot. So most of the classes that are being presented to you are fairly obvious, things like art and band and orchestra. The aerospace elective is kind of exciting. It's not one that we would very often be able to offer, but we have Kate Spiva, who has a very serious passion for this. She's a pilot, and she does quite a bit of coursework and already does education with students in this area. So in many of the cases with our 6th grade teachers, we'll be looking at probably in the next board meeting or a board meeting very soon, asking you for waivers for them to be able to teach these individual courses. So the other one that I'm excited about, maybe because I was a Spanish teacher, is the idea of bringing Spanish into the program. Students in 6th grade will have the opportunity to take Intro to Spanish, and then this will likely be the last year that 8th graders take Spanish 1. We'll be looking at creating a sequence for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders to all be able to take Spanish. Some of them would maybe still stay in Spanish 1 for their freshman year, but many of them would be able to be very well prepared to be in Spanish 2 as a 9th grader. So that's exciting. And by the way, that was in the survey data, students really were excited about taking Spanish. So that was one of our most popular items. So
It's funny, that's the one that concerns me the most.
Yeah.
Because it just feels like, it's not like at high school where you're Spanish 1, Spanish 2, Spanish 3. It's like Spanish, 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 and it's a little free-flowing, and so it sort of feels like, wouldn't it be better to just do a drama class or a coding class because it's like you said, just intro to Spanish.
yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about, so one of the hardest parts about teaching Spanish is that what you're doing is you're trying to make sure that students can speak, listen, read, and write in the language. And when I know, having been a Nordhoff teacher, teaching mostly Spanish 1 and Spanish 2, there is so much content that you need to cover, the amount of vocabulary that you have to cover, the verb conjugations, which are extremely difficult in the Latin languages, especially Spanish 2, the number of conjugations students have to learn. Students often don't do as well in Spanish 2 because of the difficulty. And what you sacrifice, because you're going over all of that grammatical stuff so much, is you sacrifice the ability to do a lot of the speaking and the listening and the fun part and the cultural things like bringing in food dishes and things like that. And so, and certainly, I'm experiencing this now, use it or lose it, right? You really have to practice Spanish, you really have to speak in the language. to really get the accent down, you have to have lots of practice. It's literally retraining your tongue and your mouth to move in different ways than ever before. And so what I see for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade is a lot more opportunity to engage in really the fun part of Spanish, the speaking part and the listening part, and the cultural pieces, because you don't have to worry about rushing through the amount of material that you're trying to have them gain as far as vocabulary and grammar. So I see it as a really fun opportunity for them to really fall in love with learning Spanish, and then when it gets really grueling, by Spanish 2. Did you take languages, Stella?
Yeah, I would say it'd probably be good, because I know in my Spanish, like, I would study for a vocab test because I had Cornell and I was super scared. And so I'd study for my vocab test, and I'd take the test, and then, you know, I would kind of hold on to those and restudy once we had the final. But you lose so much vocabulary, and you're learning so much and packing in, you know, 2 to 3 pages worth of vocab. So to be able to kind of maybe focus on a smaller amount of vocab and stuff like that to let the kids gain a good amount of things that they already know going in to high school, then, you know, picking up on those vocabulary terms and, you know, maybe cramming for those tests. At least they'll still have other things that they like remember, even if those, you know, excessive amount of vocab words fall off, but they still have that basis that they've learned, kind of like means of communicating, because you learn a lot of, you know, how to write and what are you know, how to construct this perfect sentence and stuff like that. They're pretty nitty gritty in high school, so I would say it'd be great for students to be able to, you know, really dive into the speaking early so that they get comfortable with that and comfortable with the minimal communication, because that's super, super helpful in any, you know, traveling or in any job. So, I mean, I would have loved to do that. So I think it's very cool.
Thank you for chiming
Cheryl,
in.
how do you, I'm not clear how you envision it, like, so this was, the Spanish would be the off and on elective along with PE? Or
No,
that's-
it'll
that's
be
in-
in 5th
that's-
period.
That's in the, okay.
Yeah.
And would a 6th grader, what about a 7th grader who hadn't taken that? Would the 7th grader be able to start in Spanish, or they would take the 6th grade version?
Yes, I would definitely want to make sure that we're keeping Spanish as accessible as possible. So I wouldn't want, if you didn't start in 6th grade, then
Right.
you lost your opportunity. So we'll be figuring out a way to make sure that at least at a minimum 7th graders can pop into the track.
Right.
I'm not sure how easy it would be for 8th graders to enter the 3rd year, but there might be an opportunity for 8th graders to enter the course that 7th graders would kind of take, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because anything you're gaining is better. You might not be ready to move to Spanish 2,
Right.
but you'd still be really well prepared to do well in Spanish 1. So, yeah, we will try to keep it as accessible as possible to as many students as possible.
So Javier, how do we get this offered to all the 7th and 8th graders too?
Well, the 8th graders already have the opportunity to take Spanish 1.
I just mean these grade electives instead of.
Oh,
I know.
God,
The wheel has been a struggle for 4 years. I mean,
Yeah,
not that they're not good programs, but it seems like every year there's a sort of a different.
Yeah, when I told my kids about the electives, my own kids, they want to be 6th graders again. They like the 6th grade. Yeah, that's a really great opportunity.
So cool.
It's not gonna be easy. It really depends, because of the 7th and 8th graders, they could potentially have an elective first period per se, with the pathways. So not all 5th period, all 7th graders and 8th graders are electives. So it really depends on the kid. It depends on the room that we might have available on each one of those electives. The one that is gonna be able to have more flexibility is gonna be like the music elective. Because those are really non-impacted classes, and Thomas is like the more the merrier, right?
Right.
So we're starting to populate those classes. We just, as a matter of fact, Josie's been working really hard this week on trying to figure out how many kids are going to go into each class based on their choices. And then from there, the second conversation will be to see how we can potentially have some opportunities. But it's not going to be easy.
Have you,
Yeah.
what is the wheel for next year? For
The wheel is
7th?
gonna be, so actually it's in there, we're gonna offer a STEAM class. I mean, one of the.
STEAM is
ones.
for 7th and 8th graders.
Oh.
That's what I was
STEAM
going
is
to
only for
clarify.
7th and 8th graders, because we're not gonna be offering, the personal success part of
Right.
the wheel. So it's gonna be art, and then the STEAM class, and then the STEAM arts environmental studies.
Well, that's- Those are great choices.
Yeah, and then,
Yeah.
environmental studies was the first year this year, and kids seem to be having a lot of fun with it. It's, very hands-on, they're out there, they're getting their hands dirty, I mean, it's really, really interactive. And then next year, we're looking forward to the STEAM class. Mrs. Parent, is going to be teaching it. She's been fighting for this since I was in Matiola. She's an advocate for that kind of, class, the STEAM class. So she's really looking forward to that opportunity. So it's gonna be a couple of really new and exciting, opportunities for them to take.
And
So a lot
we're,
of changes.
and we were not necessarily opposed. Some of these are, they say 6 because it's only going to be offered to 6th graders, but we actually have had lots of conversation about whether or not, for example, coding could be a class that 6th, 7th, and 8th graders potentially take. So some of these, the door is open for potentially down the road letting them be mixed classes. So we've had lots of discussion on that. Yeah.
I'll say it sounds really awesome, and I'm jealous because I wish
You
that
wanna
this
be a
was all.
sixth grade
Yeah,
again,
I
too?
really want to take like aerospace. It sounds so cool, but it's really amazing to think that 6th graders are going to be exposed to maybe something that is really of interest to them instead of just taking, the wheel or just taking something because they're just writing down numbers or they don't know what to take. But being able to kind of choose something that they might be passionate about, it's great to kind of build those passions early on, so then when you get into the high school level classes, if you already know that you love art, then you know that you want to continue to do that in high school. It sounds really awesome.
Thank you.
I'd like to add for the future when they're like, what should we do? I had, a group of the Matilla students that I've been talking to, and they keep asking for home ec.
Really?
And I'm so surprised. They're like, we want to learn how to cook, we want to know how to sew. Last week I did a tutorial, how to sew a button. I brought like 11 needles. I was like, no one's going to come to this. I had 24 students in there who wanted to sew on a button. And then they're like, can we take it home? I'm like, well, you can't take the needle home, but you can take the button home and the fabric. I was really surprised. So
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
you never know.
Yeah. We'll keep that in mind.
So this is something we need to have a motion on.
Right. So can we have a motion on approving the curriculum?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. So we are moving on to item 6.5. So, Angie, do you want to talk about that first? Yeah, that's the one. Trustee
one
areas. That's right.
Okay.
So this is about elections by trustee area rather than an at-large election, which we've had in the past.
So I just wanted to comment that I went to find the map of the district. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Kathy, for giving that to me. But then once I got it online, there was no way to draw on that map. And then when I went to print it, there was no way for me to print it without the bar in the middle. It wouldn't print the whole thing. So it was very difficult for me to put a map together. And I think I wanted just to comment that if we were hoping for the public to supply maps, it was very difficult to do. And I don't know if they were due tonight. I think that you wanted them tonight. I've seen one other map that was pretty much exactly the way I was looking at it. So I was like, yay, other people are thinking this. But I think in terms of getting input from the public on this particular item, it was.
Can you stop for a
yes.
second? Shouldn't we be opening the public hearing
Oh.
first?
Oh, that's right.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
you're
this
right.
this was public, why don't we do that?
I'll
Do
move
we
to
have a motion?
open the
Right.
Public meeting, sorry.
A second to
We
open
did
the
this
public
last time.
hearing? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that's unanimous.
Okay, I'll start over. Okay, thank you, because we did this last time, and then we
Right.
had this conversation, and I was feeling so uncomfortable because I thought you weren't supposed to have a conversation. No. Anyway, so
We
that,
always have a conversation.
so that was just a problem for me, and I don't know if there were other members of the public who were trying to put together a map or do that. I even frantically ran around the house going, "Where's the phone book? Where's the phone book?" And we don't have a phone book anymore. I don't know where the phone books were. So because I thought I could at least lay that out, make a copy, and then sort of sketch out. And that was one thing. The other problem was
The garage sale and real estate maps in the paper.
that
might be-
you're right. That would have worked. That would have been helpful. Or even like the Zillow map maybe would have worked because it's big enough for the district area. But then that also created a problem because I didn't have enough information in terms of, did it matter, like if you're looking at somebody on the west side and making a subsection of the district for a trustee in that area, the whole national forest is part of our area. And so if you go past 33 and all the way out and then down, you know, then you wonder, so does it matter if I'm putting the map together how many people live there? Yeah, I would think that population matters in terms of each section, which really helped for certain board members because I could then slide people around, you know, because I was looking at that in terms of how to organize the map and those sections so that board members the incumbents could continue to be part of the, on the board if they chose to do that and chose to run. But those were all issues, like, does it matter the population in each
Yes.
section? It does. It has to, because otherwise you could put somebody on Highway 33 and out, and that's a whole section, but it doesn't in any way. So how do you figure that out?
Yeah, so it's actually pretty unusual for people to present maps. Normally what
Oh,
districts are
okay.
seeking, or municipalities when they're seeking the public input, is more, you know, we would like to see maps that mirror school residence boundaries, or we wouldn't like to see them mirror school residence boundaries, or
Okay.
we think we should give precedent or, you know, priority to maintaining the current incumbents versus we think that's gerrymandering and shouldn't, you know, those sorts of more general statements.
Okay.
But you are welcome to provide a map, and I can email you one tonight so that way you're able to.
I can figure
It's
it
due
out.
tomorrow, actually. It's the
It-
18th, and so you do have till tomorrow.
Oh,
But
great.
I may even be able to give you an extension if you were not able to get in on tomorrow. But the idea is really the public input more often is more of that, a little more general than it is to draw out specific maps, because yeah, there's no
Okay.
question that whatever map was drawn would then have to go into his formulas of residence, because they are supposed to be as close as possible to equal to one another.
Okay, that's helpful, and that's also helpful for me, even though I'm speaking right now just as a citizen or not as the president, but I will put that information out to the members of the union because I think they have opinions about the board and how those maps are drawn. So,
And there will be opportunity to criticize the maps that are proposed.
great.
And amend those
Okay.
maps. I mean,
And
they-
amend them, okay, that's good too. Okay, that's helpful, because I just, knowing that not only, so it's not necessarily maps, it's just input about how they put that map together.
It
Or
can be a
both.
map, but more often it's input.
Okay, all right, thank you, that's helpful.
Just a comment, yeah, Chuck, go ahead,
But you have to come up because,
Thank you.
sorry.
so everyone can hear. Yeah.
See my shining forehead? I just had a comment on this because I do appreciate the diversity of our district and I understand the legalisms that were going on this. But in flying hot air balloons, we look at things in terms of altitude and I thought, well, Miramonte's a different altitude than Miners Oaks. And so maybe if we did a map based on altitude for the people that live at Summit, right, versus Miramonte, because the neighborhoods are generally in the same elevation. Just an idea.
It's an idea.
Thank you.
I will make note.
The Creek Road people are at a different elevation.
No, I struggle with it too. I think that there are so many things that go into it, the demographics, the population density, the natural kind of borders. And so I'm more waiting to see what the demographers come up with, and then I'm looking more forward to criticizing than giving input beforehand. So.
Well, that
Yeah.
is helpful to know that we will have an opportunity to speak to what they bring to you. Or is it to you guys or to the public? How does it get?
It's both.
It's
both.
all of us.
So
Yeah.
just to remind everyone of the timeline, so after tonight, tomorrow is when maps are due and any other feedback that we want to go to the demographer. He will present at least 2 options by the end of next week. And so we have to publicize those for 10 days prior to our May 6th board meeting. So on May 6th, we will have our first public hearing and a chance for the community to engage in those proposals. Then we'll have a month where a demographer could potentially make changes if that became necessary. And we'd have a second public hearing, and you must have 2 before you can approve it. The second one would take place at our first board meeting in June. And presumably you'd be adopting at that meeting as well following the second public hearing, although you would have the ability, if there was such significant feedback that necessitated change after that second hearing, you could push the actual vote to the second board meeting in June. But that's our timeline. So we have 2 more public hearings at minimum.
And Angie, I appreciate that, because same thing, I was kind of like, wait, what? The maps are due, or our input is due? Because I kind of wanted information, it's like, well, the whole point of this is for underrepresented groups, right? So I don't know where our are they at the East End? Are they at, I know we have some in the West End, but I also know we have them in Summit, and I know, so it's like, if the point of it is to give them representation, I need more information. And then you do have man-made barriers, so you've got Ojai Avenue, you've got, I think people naturally think in terms of school district, school zones, like you're in the Miramani zone or the Miners Oaks or the Topa, and I don't know that that's the best way. I mean, it's a way, but I'd rather have more information about the population in general. And, what is the age of, it's sort of like, okay, well, if you pick a certain area and it's mostly retirees in that area, is that the best thing for the school district? It's almost like we look at the last census, which is 2010, which isn't very helpful.
So a few comments there. We have had people ask the question of, we have a census coming up in 2020, are we going to have to make a change once that census comes out? The answer is possibly. Now I feel that the Ojai Valley, and you perhaps would agree, in general has not experienced that drastic of a change from new housing starts over the past 9 years, perhaps over the past 39 years.
Or 100.
Yes. So, the overall population of the Valley of the area that we serve, I don't believe is going to be substantially different. That would necessitate that we look at moving boundary by a street in either direction, but that's possible. It may happen. So yes, we may have to make changes actually for the 2022 election, but once again, those changes are far more likely, if they're necessary at all, to be a street over based on population changes. But again, I don't think the population changes have been so drastic. And while they aim to have them as equal as possible as far as overall population size, they don't need to be exact. They're not going to change a street boundary because one area has 10 residents more than the neighboring. So, there is a latitude allowed when it comes to, a little variance between the sizes. Another question that I've received over the past couple of days was whether or not they take into account either the age of the residents or things like ownership versus renters. And those would be things that would not be taken into account. Because obviously when it comes to from public elections California, there's no difference made when it comes to an owner versus a renter. It used to be that they actually could set certain parcel taxes that were only voted on by owners. That's now been banned by the state. So at this point, renters have equal voice as owners. Kids who are voters who do not have children in the district, whether it's by age, they don't have children at school age, or by choice, they have their kids in other educational venues, would still, would not be, disqualified or otherwise, reduced in their voting power because of this fact. Yeah, exactly.
But Andy, that doesn't, I don't think anyone's out saying that anyone should be disenfranchised. They're just saying that you might, for example, have more people in rentals who are considered protected classes. And so it might just be something you consider as part of your map. I would think it would be considered.
No, well, to the point you just said, yes, absolutely be considered. If that was the intent behind the question, then yes, I don't mean to disagree with that statement.
So, I mean, we haven't heard from the demographer, but I assume the demographer might consider concentration of retired people in a certain area and think, well, you might want to split that up so that now you have, whatever. I don't know what things they're going to say to us, but.
I'm also wondering if they can look at voter participation, because even at an at-large election, we don't get that many votes. I mean, we're not talking about a huge number of people. I mean, some of us get more than others, but but we don't get that many, and I'm just, there may be areas where people vote more. I think it would be unfortunate if one trustee needs 1,000 votes to get elected and another trustee needs 5 votes to get elected.
Well, voter registration then is important.
Well, but participation and registration.
But even just registration,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, that's better than nothing,
Yeah.
right?
That's a hard one though, because you could certainly.
Right, you could argue that because you would disenfranchise people because they hadn't voted in the past.
Well, and you can also argue that someone would say, I didn't vote because I didn't like the fact that it was a general election and I wanted to vote for my person and now I can, so now I'm gonna vote.
I'm actually thinking the opposite, so you've got, right, if you're, at our population, if people are being disenfranchised, they also might be illegal. So they're not voting, so you've got a large population of people in this area, so if the demographer is just looking at population from the census, it doesn't mean there's voters. Are they looking for registered voters, or, I'm, not that I care.
Well, this is all about elections, so this is only considering voters.
Mm-hmm.
This is not gonna ever consider people that don't vote. I mean, how
No.
could it?
I know, but the whole idea is that people are underrepresented, well,
Voters.
Correct.
It's the best
Okay.
they can do.
but they might not be I don't mean that people who don't vote, that they can't vote.
Right, but the law that's compelling us to do this is our voter laws,
Okay.
right?
Yes, correct.
So anyway, I would hope that they would look at voters and, if there's a way to look at participation, I think.
Mm-hmm.
There's an interesting, I had read an article about there's some some person who has developed a way to develop congressional maps that without the gerrymandering, and it's based on population. So generally in this county or this state, there's this many women, this many black, Hispanic, and so his computer can actually make districts that match the state. So, or match the county or something, without any, it's just like, you have 50% men, 50, here's the way your map is every 10 years based on, in order to get a representation equal to what the state or the county is. And I mean, that's another way, it's like I gather the idea of this is just the opposite. It's to sort of say, well, you wanna group all your.
I think the intent is the opposite.
opposite.
Yeah. But it doesn't mean that that's how the demographer needs to do it. I mean, that's the intent, but.
Right, I think that falls under the community of interest.
Right.
It's like that there be some unifying interest and stuff. I think the one thing that I've heard of all of the feedback that kind of resonates with me is the concern about setting up elementary competitive districts. That bothers me. I've seen that at other levels, where trustees sort of adopt a school and that becomes their thing. I wouldn't want to encourage that. I mean, everybody needs to, lobby for what they want, but I wouldn't want to structurally encourage it. That would concern me. Then I have a
And I've
question.
already heard from the general public that people feel that way already.
Yeah.
That the schools are
Yeah, I
too
wouldn't want to make it
competitive.
worse, yeah. Andy, I have a second question, and it
Yes.
goes back to this underrepresentation and stuff. Is the idea to try and find districts where there can be ethnic majorities supposedly, or is this more just, if we do this, that will be the outcome, better representation? Does that make sense?
That's a good question.
So again, they are taking all of these factors into consideration. They're allowing some level of local, priorities, like we'd rather see lines drawn again according to a school area or not, or have the 33 and the 150 be natural dividing lines. So they allow those because they do believe that inherently by making this change, that if there are areas that are naturally more homogeneous rather than heterogeneous, that's going to come out through this process.
Okay.
So the sheer act of going through this process is going to go toward the end that they're striving for. Now, if we wanted to go above that and say that we actually want to prioritize ensuring that the greatest level of voice and participation by minority groups occurs through this gerrymandering, I'm certain that they would make efforts toward that, but they'd also want to be cautious not to have us just group all of the minority in a single group and then limit their voice across the district. So, those are always the balancing acts that they are trying to accomplish.
Sure, because that's assuming, if there's, then you've got, that's your one representative, and the four
Precisely.
other people are not,
That's exactly right.
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 And I do want to say that we had a translator here tonight for this section, and also the section about cultural literacy. We didn't have anyone here who requested that use, but I think in the future, if there's going to be public meetings, and we're trying to hear from the public in ways that they can be better represented, that people know that there will be that available.
Right.
And hopefully it won't be just the five of us discussing. And Angie.
Sorry, girl, I have things to say.
And Chuck,
And
right.
Chuck,
Yeah.
that's two.
So when we look at these districts, when does the company come, the demographers?
They will be here at our May board meeting, presenting the actual, again, it will be publicly made available before, so we'll put it up on our website and we'll give it to the OVN and elsewhere. But then at the actual meeting itself is when they will reveal them and go through their, reason or their rationale, and then allow for the public feedback again.
Okay, I just, because I don't want anyone to think that I'm trying to disenfranchise people. That's not how I feel at all. It's just, I have lived in every single part of Ojai.
Have you?
Every single, and in 1 year I lived in
Indoors
6
and
different
outdoors.
places. Seattle Robles, East End, Oakview, where I live now, downtown. I've lived everywhere. And I just feel like each area has its own thing, and it doesn't, unless, for the most part, and many of those years were as a renter, and on a teacher salary as a single person. So my rentals were like little tiny, hovels. And I feel like I was in the heart of all these Myers Oaks and all the community. And every single section has its own thing going, but it also has its own demographics. And so I don't, unless they're gonna go, like that and then move it around, I don't know how they, unless they're really going to move around within downtown Ojai, Miners Oaks, Miramani, our street, we have two children right now. Everybody's else, almost everyone else is retired. And we're included on this, So it's like, how do you do that? And I know there's a lot of parts of Ojai that are like that. So I'm
So that's the
very
feedback though,
concerned about our school board.
that's the feedback that our demographer will certainly desire.
Okay.
So it can be shared tonight or at upcoming meetings, but
Okay.
to what extent do we want to try to have districts mirror these communities that we could probably name a number of, or do we want to actually have them intersect with one another? And so instead of having Miramani have its own distinct trustee area, instead have the southern portion, the portion of Miramani that's south of 33. In the same area as that which is south of 33 in the city limits. So that way which is Topa school, have that sort of population together, and then have that area above, in Miramani that's north, the idea is to what extent do we want to try to capture individual areas in this community as being different and therefore should be isolated, as far as their grouping versus, intersected and connected.
Yeah, it's just how do you create diversity when it's sort of separated out in a way. Not totally, but I just get concerned.
I think the idea is not to have diversity. I mean, the idea behind these lawsuits,
Well,
right? You don't want it to be a nice mix of your school district. You want it to be specific.
so I'll go to Moore Park because I don't know that it perfectly relates here, but Moore Park just made this transition, both their city and their school district, and they happen to be an area that those two boundaries are pretty much identical. The district serves the city boundaries. In that area, the Latino population, not exclusively, but nearly exclusively, lives in about 1 square mile area around Charles Street, First Street, High Street, in the downtown, the oldest part of the town, built up around the train tracks. And if you actually looked at the voting patterns of that community over the past 4 or 5 elections, the individual that community voted for was never the one that actually won the city council seat or the school board seat. And so you were able to directly see that how by having at-large elections, the will of that community was actually being suppressed because they're being drowned out from a larger population in other areas. So that's the exemplar of what this law is trying to change. It's trying to identify if there are naturally occurring, geographically, grouped populations, that their vote is not minimized by being just outnumbered across the entire area. So if we had that, if it were the case that Myers Oaks had a larger Latino population than Miramani and the other areas of our community, then I do believe the spirit of the law would be that we really want to give that area its own vote and voice. Now, if we look at the enrollment patterns of our district, and as we do closely, and see the those who are in our district based on the school of residence, meaning based on where they actually live, that all of our schools have a population that's at least 60% Caucasian and 35% Latino, roughly speaking, before you start accounting for the intra-district, choice options. So, our school, Myers Oaks, is the Latino population is the largest racial group on the campus. They're more so than Caucasian, but it's not because the community as a whole, at least not the community who are part of our district, mirror those demographics, but instead it's because of patterns of inflow and outflow of families who are choosing other schools as well. So I think that it'll be interesting when we do see the demographic report, because I think that perception is that there are areas in our community that are more demographically, again, homogenous, and I'm not sure, at least right now, we don't see that in our enrollment data, so it'll be interesting to see if we see that when you look at the broader community.
Great, do we have
I'll move to close the public hearing.
Second.
all in favor? Aye. Moving to that's unanimous. 7.1
You were
point,
really good at that, unanimous.
yeah, well, I don't know if we're gonna make it through the whole night, but we're doing good so far. Okay, reduction and or elimination of classified positions. Andy, do you wanna give us some background on this?
Yeah, so this is, remember, March is when we bring to you the certificated layoffs, both that are a reduction of a particular kind of service, meaning that that we're actually reducing the number of teachers that we have because of either declining enrollment or lack of funds. And then we had a separate one that was for hourly staff or for uncertainty of funds. So we had those come to you in March. We're bit bittersweet here. I mean, the positive for classified is that we don't actually have coming to you a resolution like what we had for certificate when it came to just a flat reduction of 4 elementary staff, meaning that we are reducing our services for and potentially having an impact on class sizes. We are not coming this year to you to lay off any of our classified staff for purposes of trying to make ends meet for the budget. Every one of these are because they're either funded by Title I, they're funded by supplemental dollars at the site. Many of these are staff who will be brought back in the exact same role next year, but just as a procedural necessity that we actually give them notice this year. And so the list is lengthy, as you've seen. But these are people who, the vast majority, if not all, when they were hired or sometime very quickly thereafter, were informed that the nature of the position that they were being hired for is one that that receives this notice each year. So still not easy. We still are we'll be going around with CSA's assistance and delivering these letters in the coming days. But it's far more positive than what we've seen in years past, like the painful one last year with having to reduce the number of our classified custodial staff and elementary office, or I'm sorry, the high school office staff. So that's what this resolution is. It's a reduction based on either uncertain funds or funds that were of a temporary nature.
Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve resolution 18-19-19, reduction, elimination of classified positions.
Second?
I'll second.
Roll call vote. Kathy? Can you?
Yes, please.
Member Weil,
Yes.
Member Ruff,
Yes.
Member Shanahan,
Yes.
and Member Whipple.
Yes. All right, and then if there's no objection, I'd like to take 7.1.2 and 7.1.3 together. These are both resolutions to recognize. The first is California Teacher Appreciation Week and California Day of the Teacher in May, and the second is in recognition of the Classified School Employee Week. Do we have a motion to approve those?
I just want to make a
Or
quick comment
comments?
on there.
Sure.
Yeah. I want to say two things. One is, we're so lucky, really, for the staff we have. Just district-wide, so many amazing people. But we're lucky to have the help of the PTAs in being able to show our appreciation. Because really, we pass these resolutions, but what really shows the teachers and the staff our appreciation is the communities at those schools, sites. And so, thank you for helping us show them how much we appreciate them. And thank you for being such wonderful people that are worthy of appreciation for all that you do.
Here, here.
I'll move
Well
to-
said.
Sorry. Anything else? I'll move to approve resolution 18-19-20 and 18-19-21 in recognition of Teacher Appreciation Week and Classified School Employee Week.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Moving to 7.4.1, our Measure J project update, and then we'll have some votes.
As Alan's coming up, Adam has asked forgiveness for being here a bit late. If he's able to, he'll make it at 7:30, but he right now I think is yelling at Johnny to round second, and so he's coaching baseball right now, and will be here soon.
Probably yelling at Johnny to throw the ball harder. I think eight runs.
Oh, really? He was expecting that you'd be asking to live stream it or live tweet it during this board meeting. So obviously you guys can see we've got a lot of Measure J materials tonight. I appreciate Alan being here. He'll go over them with you. The first item is just our information update, and you guys can see, as Dennis alluded to earlier, just how busy our team is.
Well, good evening. My name is Alan White. I'm one of your two bond managers. Adam is on his way. He texted me. And so you have the written information update that came in your package, but I'm going to give you just a little bit more so as Paul Harvey says, now you'll hear the rest of the story. We have, starting with active bids, we have the library open, the library remodel at Nordhoff, and the Nordhoff roof went back to rebid because we weren't satisfied with the first bids that we got when we did the round of roofing bidding. And so those are open and will be closing soon. We have a closed bid which happened yesterday. We have not given it's pending the award, and then so that'll come to the next meeting, which is for the Topa Topa painting. I'm pleased to announce that the low bid on that particular project came in about $170,000 below our budget, and so that was good news. There are some bids that are pending approval tonight, which are the Matilaha Gym, 4 roofing projects, and the Topa Topa demo of rooms 20 and 21. So you have all that on your agenda, so I won't go over that with you, unless you have questions. We have some projects that have been approved and awarded and are pending execution. The first of those is the Matilaha Junior High School HVAC for rooms 1 through 5, and that is scheduled to start about the week of the 29th of April. So we'll be jumping on that right away. And there are still 3 schools left to finish the blinds, which that project has been ongoing. So Miramonte, Miners Oaks, and Nordhoff still have the blinds to be installed. We have some projects that are under review, and this is what Adam and I are spending a lot of time doing right now, is just the scoping and specifying and things like that that are sort of in that pre-bid mode. And just to give you a quick summary of those, there are 5 locations where we're looking at paving, which includes San Antonio and Miners Oaks. Both of those have a DSA aspect to them. Miners Oaks will be clearing out the final of the DSA closeouts, and then there's a new paving project at San Antonio that will involve DSA approval on that as well.
And that Myers Oaks project is what Dennis was referencing earlier when he was saying the one last actual task that we have to be able to finalize out our outstanding old DSA projects.
I was gonna confirm that, so that's the end of that tail.
Those 32
Yeah.
item list will be closed out when we finish that up. And we're waiting right now on the architect that's been helping us work with DSA to give us his final, go ahead so we can just put the thing to bid and get it done. So, and we will come in under budget. The budget money that was set aside for DSA closeouts will come in well under that as well. Let's see. So just to kind of recap things that are in, we have those 5 paving projects. We have HVAC going on at 6 locations, and that includes the one that we're doing at Matilaha for rooms 1 through 5. We have 1 paint project left after tonight, I hope, which is Miners Oaks to finish out. At Nordhoff, we're looking at both the pool and the track and doing some work there. There's some track at the track at Matilaha has some erosion issues on the slope there, and so we're looking at dealing with some of that. And the Matilaha gym, we're looking at maybe replacing some windows, the windows along that, because we're already doing the roof, we're already doing the locker rooms, and the windows were kind of left out of that package, so we're looking at doing that as well.
Where is the slope on the track?
From the basketball courts and where the stadium, concrete, stadium stairs and seating is, on either side of that, there are slopes that go down to where the track is.
Okay, so not the track itself.
Not the track itself.
But on the sides of the seating.
For example, where the basketball courts are, the maintenance department has put in about 3 yards of slurry into one hole that just erosion has occurred from underground water coming in, wiping out underneath the basketball courts and forcing that dirt that's on the hillside down onto the track, which then has to be cleared off. And so anyway, so we're looking at doing some retaining there with some sort of retaining wall. So then we have 2 shade structures, one Miramonte, one San Antonio to look at. San Antonio's won't happen until after we complete the paving project. And then we have the Matilaha kitchen redo. That is, we received the initial package from DSA and their comments. We're working with the architect now to respond to all of those comments and get some of the issues taken care of. We did draw a pretty diligent DSA inspector and reviewer, and so we're probably going to be completing that up and then looking to hopefully get it done in time to maybe start that project about October. So that's not a summer project.
And just so you guys know, that was actually also at the request of our staff at Matilaha. They were feeling that the combination of being on the tail end of the locker room and gymnasium project that's taking place over the summer, with the slurry of some of the parking lot, with everything else going on in anticipation of the HVAC, then having to move teachers between classrooms. Actually, at the last staff meeting, or last 2 staff meetings that Cheryl and I both attended, their strong request was, please give us at least 6 weeks of having kids just be able to adjust to the flow at Matilaha before we have one more, challenging construction zone. And so We are honoring their request as well as we're just working within the timelines that TSA is providing us as well. In either case, it was not going to materially impact the opening date of the kitchen. We knew in either case we were looking at being down for the entire rest, whenever it starts, the entire school year next year.
So where is food going to be served out of?
Do you guys want to talk about the latest on that?
One of the things we're looking at is using one of the offices that's in the industrial arts, or was, I guess they called it the industrial arts building. There's an office available there that they can use for storage and that. And then coming out, there's a landing that's adjacent to where the grass ends, and then there's a pavement area begins. It's relatively flat. Using that as a serving area, setting up some event type tents that will be there for the duration, where we can put picnic tables, things under, so people can eat their lunch in the shade, or if it's raining or something like that.
So meal prep will be done off-site, just as we did when Topo was down at the start of the 17-18 school year. So meal prep will be done between Nordoff and Myers Oaks. It'll be transported over, and it'll be sold out of the locations that they were just describing.
We need a food truck.
We actually, I fully charged Julie with the go-ahead to explore that, and it was just coming back so expensive.
Because then you could use it at Nordoff afterwards for like those sort of.
Our own food truck,
Really
not somebody
amazing.
else's.
Yeah.
Well, that's just it, is that, we still have, no matter when there's food being served during the school day and what we're doing in addition to that, it must still comply with all federal guidelines on school meals. So, when I was growing up, the motivation to do the magazine sale was that you have the In-N-Out truck come and you get your double-double or whatever it was. Those days are over. You cannot have, the sale or incentivizing of student behavior. Well, you can't have the sale to students during the school day of non-USDA school nutrition.
But our food is so good, we could put it on a food truck and then sell it to
That's
the
right.
community.
Exactly. Absolutely.
And just to piggyback on that real quick, Nutrition Services looked into doing a couple carts in that
Right.
area that Alan was discussing to alleviate the crush of,
That's
the whole
exactly right.
student body coming in once. They'd have a couple different spots to go to get the same fare. So-
Yeah, and those carts, actually, she's right now working with Oxnard Elementary District on getting some amazing pricing of being able to buy some very gently used items from them, Suzanne's district. And so we're going to be bringing to you, but getting a very good deal on some of those. And frankly, it'll be very helpful when we have other kitchens down, as we know that we have other projects. But also, long-term at Matilaha, being able to help ease some of the congestion is by, our strategy has always been, if we can keep kids away from that main service line. We obviously have already tried to address the issue in the actual layout of the service line and of the ingress and egress to that space. But having a separate cart, 100 yards away is going to also be a way for those who are coming up for snack to be able to avoid all that congestion. So the solution that Julie's coming up with, I think, is really well thought out, and one in which the instruments and equipment that she buys will be very heavily utilized in our district for the years to come.
Any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Actually, I do have
yeah.
a quick question. I don't know that you would have the answer, but in terms of the library and the removal of units 21 and 22 at Topa Topa, how does all the stuff that's in them, is that part of the whole process? I mean, like all the library books into storage and the desks that are over there, and that all the
Adam, you've
teachers have to be moved to another room?
I have as well, so I can answer, but I know you've had a number of conversations with Dave and Denise.
Yeah, the plan is to utilize, for instance, Nordoff, the plan is to utilize one of the empty classrooms as well as half the I building. And so Denise will be split up a little bit, but, and our current maintenance staff, Dave Rogers' team, is working on, actually I think it was the 29th of this month, to have the first push out of the library over to A3 actually.
So our personal staff is, we're using employees to move
Correct.
Right.
boxes of books
Right.
and desks. and-
So the first thing is just the bookshelves, and Denise has been, we walked in a couple weeks ago, she already had piles of books of, what's staying, what's going,
That's right.
so she's very excited.
Yeah. So, and also to that, just this process, not the purpose of this process, but a nice benefit of it is to have her cull her collection. She's been already working with Bart's books, as well as I'm blanking on the one in Myers Oaks, Bookends. Thank you.
Bookends, yeah.
Working with them on actually selling to them and having the money come back into our library for new books, as well as she's going to be selling some of the books at the spring showcase at Nordhoff this year. And then what we can't otherwise distribute in those channels we'll be making available free for our families. But our goal was actually to reduce our collections by about 30%. I think what we're seeing is that we had so much very outdated things that we may actually be going below the 30% reduction. But she's finding a number of things that have some real value. We have collections of National Geographics from the 40s and other things that if I were a librarian, I would have thrown away a long time ago, but now actually have some real historic value either for our school or for this community. So.
And actually, she told me that I think it was someone from Ventura County Library Systems or VCOE or something had came in and said, you're actually gonna be better positioned to receive grants and donations because they base it on the number of books you have and the number in your student population. So if you say, we have 700 kids and we have 20,000 books, and they go, you have plenty. But you're like, but they're really only checking out these thousand books. So you actually want to reduce so that you get new books, and the books you get are actually books the students are, because you're not checking out the National Geographics and the Jane Austen books. There's like Jane Austen books from like 18 something or 1920. She's looking at pricing those.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at
like quite valuable.
Exactly. Yeah, there are some valuable things in there, and we'll get top value.
And Jane, to answer your question about Topa demo, I sent an email to Dawn today to just start that process of, when school's out, because they're using at least one of the classrooms now, we need to start organizing that, and it'll be probably a similar thing with district staff helping to empty those rooms out so that we can come in and demo, because the demo contract that you're looking at there doesn't have anything to do with removing what's inside.
Right, and that's my concern, because I know one of the classrooms that now will no longer have a teacher because of the FTE reductions, they'll be moving into there, but that's a second grade classroom with little desks, and you're moving a fourth grade, and then, obviously we're not gonna have teachers to do that because it's summer. So it's just something we have to. What?
There's a plan. There's another empty classroom that teacher is moving into, and her materials are moving into that, not into Alex's old room, but into a different classroom. And there's actually, we've got a plan.
Good, thank you very much. I would like to take 7.4.2 through 7.4.7 together for a vote, unless there's an objection. But just briefly for those watching, this is to approve the roof and locker room contract from Matilaha, approval of a roofing contract from Matilaha, approval of a roofing contract for Myers Oaks, for Miramani, for Topa, and demolition for Topa.
Andy, before I have a question. I remember, what was the project that got no bid?
They got no bids. It was initially the Matilaha gym and locker room.
Just so complicated, or why wouldn't anyone want to bid? Why didn't?
Well, it was a large project. There are only very few bidders, very few companies that are eligible to or able to do the barrel roofing with the metal, full metal roofing.
Right.
And so that narrowed the field. And then the locker room was, I guess, complicated enough that we just got 0 bids, which then allowed us to go and negotiate directly with the contractors.
It was the compressed timeline. May 1st to August 1st is a tight timeline for those locker rooms. So that's, I think, scared quite a few people off as well. And our message is always has been from the get-go, it has to be August 1st.
So are we still maintaining that? Remind me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so we're gonna, Matilaha certainly is gonna see some construction here very soon. We have, as Alan said, HVAC starting on the 29th, and this is, pending your approval tonight, would be starting May 1.
I have a quick question. Myers Oaks roofing. I thought there was, when we did some work and then we were like, it was under budget, so we got to do more. And was that roofed or was that painting? Remember at Myers Oaks, we had a picture of where they were doing the work, wasn't that roofing?
Well, we've done roofing already at Myers Oaks, but
Okay.
I'm not
This is just
sure.
more.
Right, this is the completion.
The
Yep,
last of it.
Exactly.
Thank you. I'll move to approve 7.4.2 through 7.4.7.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Good job, gentlemen.
All right, let's.
Adam, you should not come to the future meetings.
Let's go to the board policies. So there are 82 pages. And I think, yeah,
My first question is on 23. Does anyone have anything before that?
okay. Yeah, I just want to say generally that it seems like there's been a change in how they're sending these to us. It looks like there are a whole lot of optional policies that are just, in my opinion, words that don't really direct anybody to do anything. And so, I don't, it probably won't come as a surprise to anybody that I don't like that.
Are you suggesting dropping some?
But I would suggest dropping all of those.
Which, where are we
Um,
starting?
So that would be pages 4 through 8, and then 21. Anyway, we can go through these one at a time, but there are a bunch of them. 23 through 26, 27 through 28, 29 through 30, 31 through 33. Anyway, I don't know how everyone else feels, but if you like.
I'm sorry, what was?
I just don't think that they direct anybody to do anything. I think they're just words.
Well,
He's saying
actually,
those which are not legally required to be adopted. Again, CSBA does seem to be giving us more policies that are optional policies or ones that are their recommended best practice language, but not ones that new statute are actually mandating.
Though on page 5, it's saying the board and superintendent will develop and implement policies and strategies to promote equity, which is kind of what people have been.
Right, but I think it's redundant of other policies we have that actually do that. We have all
The
the,
comprehensive plans, local control, accountability, all those things that
right,
they're
right.
listing.
Yeah, and we have policies for all of those things.
Yeah, except for the fact that one of the things that we discovered is that we've been sort of haphazardly dealing with equity issues over time in our curriculum. And now we're working on doing this more broad and more permanent and, embed in stuff. And to me, this was reflective of that. And this spoke to me sort of directly to what we heard from some of the community, and it's a real public statement that we're behind all of that. So this one didn't give me as many problems.
Yeah, 4 through 8, absolutely, I would think we would keep at this point.
Okay. So the next one I had was, on 16, use of school facility as a polling place. I guess if a city or county elections official specifically requests the use of a school building as a polling place, and this is with school in session. Is that something that we do already?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay. It just doesn't, I always prefer may rather than shall, but,
Well, it has May.
Well, there's some shalls in there.
Oh.
I mean, I assume that's just tracking the law, though. I mean, Elections Code
Elections
1220.
Code 12-283.
8.3, yeah, so
Okay.
shall.
And those shells, I don't bother me, right? I mean, there has to be enough space around the polling place, and, because those only come into place if the may is exercised.
okay.
22?
You said 21.
21 is the next one I have. This is optional use of school facilities. This is any use which involves the possession, consumption, or sale of alcoholic beverages, except for special events approved by the superintendent. Let's see. What is this?
I'm only one person.
It's been such a long time since I looked at these. It's been a couple of months. I guess, if everybody else is fine with that, I'm fine with that.
On page 23 and 24, and 25. So this says it's optional. And it seems like a good thing. We would want to help our children and families with these other governmental agencies, but it also seems like it's requiring us to be the initiator of all this, and we just don't have the staff for it. The district shall initiate and maintain relationships with representatives of local agents. The next page, the board shall encourage a periodic assessment of children's needs within the community. You know, I
Right,
just think.
shall receive regular reports, shall communicate.
Yeah, and I'm like, where's the money? The superintendent or designee shall work with interagency partners to explore funding opportunities. I don't know, I just feel like it's too big of a, I mean, certainly we were helping during the fire, you know, connect families.
Well, there are things that we want to do. I just don't like requiring us to do things. It doesn't stop us from doing them, and we want to do them often. But I don't think we want to have to, yeah, I mean, it seems like some of the things that we're doing for the state and the federal government, where we're creating a process that isn't really helpful sometimes.
Yeah. So anybody opposed to not?
I found this really overly prescriptive.
Yeah, and I agree, and you know, we've had this conversation before, and I frankly, the litigator, lawyer in me, you know, hates the idea of policies that someone can reference, just like an employee handbook, where someone can go, okay, well, this is what you say, and then if you don't actually do it, it puts you in a terrible position. So, you know, I feel like I agree with you. I think this is kind of common sense stuff that we don't need policies, prescriptive policies on, and instead rely on the good judgment of the people that are administering our schools, so.
So we're moving 23 through 26.
Right.
Yeah,
And
the whole
then
policy, right?
27 through 28, how do you feel about that? It's the same sort of thing, where it's optional. I mean, none of these in and of themselves are that big of a deal. I just don't like the idea of requiring us to do things.
Yeah, I have no problem.
I agree, we can remove that.
You know, I'll also tell you, you know, if we had unlimited time, you know, for our job as board members, it would be great to go through everything that has been approved,
Right.
find anything that's optional and say, is this something we need?
Right.
Because I would much rather maintain the bare bones of policies that are required
Right.
and then use good discretion otherwise.
And things that we really care
Yeah,
about.
right.
Yeah. So.
So when you say 27, are you going just 27 and 28? Yeah.
Well, I was just doing them one at a time, but yeah, so 29 and 30 would be the next question. Anybody want to keep that? Then,
Well, I was gonna say, actually, yeah, okay, I'm sorry, just to 30, right? Because I've got,
right,
yeah,
then,
So, wait a second, on the administrative discretion, are we gonna eliminate the whole policy or just the new language?
my thought is the whole thing is optional. Well, it's only that one page, right? Page 27.
Yeah.
28 is just footnotes.
Yeah. I don't really know what it is, this policy. It wasn't really clear what the purpose was.
It's optional.
Yeah, well, I could go without the whole thing.
Okay.
it's a-
29.
Yeah, 29 and 30.
Again, it's sort of like, we this one, I was sort of like, well, we already really do this.
Right.
Right, I mean, contracts, we have rules already that say contracts come to us.
Right.
And we receive them in every packet.
Yeah, and like paying
So is this
full
adding
detail.
anything, is this adding, or this is just changing, it all says new.
New language.
Oh.
Yeah, it's optional, so for me, that means I'd rather just delete it.
I don't mind this one because I think it does give some guidelines, but if you look through it, Andy, and tell me, oh, like the other ones I feel like, oh, that's extra work that's not really part of, if you, it's sort of like, it's adding work that's not important. I wanna keep work that's important. And is this,
And what does this notation mean, from AR deleted? Does that mean that this is actually just moved from somewhere else?
That's right.
So this is something that we already have, we're just putting it here as opposed to in the general accounting policies?
Yeah, there's nothing in here that's actually a new burden that we wouldn't otherwise be doing.
so can we leave it?
Well, I think it's
You'd rather
probably
get rid
good
of
for student travel.
You wanna keep it?
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Okay, 31 through 33.
So the thing that got my attention was 32. In accordance with the government code, the board delegates to the superintendent authority to essentially sell claims for 50 grand or less. There's a reference to JPA, but I can't imagine that the superintendent.
I was just bringing that to you.
Yeah, you would. Tiffany might be out there selling something as we speak. No, I just don't like it as a policy. I wouldn't.
Well, I want to get rid of the whole thing anyway, so.
Okay, so we're eliminating 31 and 32.
And, yeah, 33 too, as long as we're eliminating.
You seem giddy right now. You're getting a lot of.
Hey, I haven't won them all,
Slash and
but we're doing good. All right, my next comments are on 45, and I have a bunch of arrows and question marks. Not sure what any of them mean.
And I'm good with the claims and actions against the district. I find it kind of mind-blowing on 34 that we can actually establish a statute of limitations for claims against our district of 6 months. But if that's something we're allowed to do, I'm all in favor.
See, that's not one that I wanted to eliminate. So.
Yeah.
What's wrong with 45?
I'm trying to figure out what all my circles and arrows and question marks are. It seemed like this was contradictory, and maybe I just read it wrong.
Okay.
So employee, I'm looking at the middle paragraph.
Uh-huh.
Employees serving in management, senior management, or confidential positions shall not be represented by an exclusive representative.
Yeah, but the ability to make somebody confidential is really narrow.
Okay.
This is a reference to
But then
unions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then it goes on to talking about such employees being represented.
No,
In
it's
the
just
same
saying if they
paragraph.
can either represent themselves or they can be part of a group that is entirely composed of other people holding their positions. They can't be like in the teachers' union and be representing leadership.
So remember the exclusive representative is actually a defined term. And if you go back to the page prior, you'll see that it's actually defined as representation of all public school employees other than management and confidential employees. So they're saying that, we don't blend the management can actually be can be part of a union, and there are some districts in which management have their own management union, but they couldn't have the management union be the same group as the teachers union
Okay.
or the classified union.
if they don't have a union, I think what this is talking about is sort of like an association where they can band together and talk
Right.
to management, but they don't actually get a collective bargaining agreement.
Okay, great. My next optional policy is 55 through 59. This health screening for school entry. And I think we do have health
We do,
screening.
yeah, dental
Right.
and vision.
But it seems like whatever policies we have are working. Unless you don't feel that they are.
This one doesn't bother me, but if it's putting us in a position of, like Kevin said, well, you said you do this,
Yeah, shall,
I think we already are, so I don't see a problem in keeping it, but. Kevin, Michael?
I think the main thing is what we're doing, and I don't think we need this policy.
There's a lot here.
You highlighted a ton.
Oh, I know, it's just like, there's all these things that have to be done, and, I mean, how does this compare to what we're doing now?
So remember, it's only those sections which have, or paragraphs which have the word new are actually changes to board policy. But I do not believe they are changes to our practice. I mean, the new sections are simply saying that we, notify parents that they're gonna be receiving these services. After the services have been provided, that we notify the parents, a parent may be excused from complying with the oral health assessment requirements if they indicate on a form. It's really, when I read this, it's just the only thing that's really changing is us notifying parents of various rights, which we do.
Okay. And I don't have a problem with it.
Otherwise, it's all existing board policy.
So Michael, there's a movement on the table to remove it, even though we have it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm reluctant to remove existing policies because there's 2 or 3 paragraphs that are new.
Well, is there an option, I guess the do no harm option is just to do nothing new,
Yep, you can do that.
just maintain as is. I guess that's what my preference would be. It feels like we're
Okay.
operating consistent with the old policy, new stuff doesn't seem particularly important, and
okay?
we'll throw one back at him.
I'm
Maintain
Some
Can
sort
I
of
just need a little
equilibrium here.
clarification on page 57? The bottom half of the page, the first paragraph is new. And then, so we're gonna remove that bottom half of the page? Or we're gonna remove everything except for the first paragraph?
So we're gonna just keep the board policy as it currently is.
Okay, so on page
We're-
57, we remove everything except for the first
Well,
paragraph?
we're gonna keep the board policy as it currently is.
So we can just
So-
just not,
So-
not
worry
worrying
about
about
these.
it.
AR 5141.3.
So we're not actually gonna be doing anything with the CSBA guidelines for the July update. Instead, we're just gonna ignore this recommendation, just keep the current language as is.
I have something on 62.
I have something on 61, and this is another one where maybe I just need your help in understanding it. This new paragraph in the middle, that English learners shall be provided differentiated English language development instruction. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure why it's new. It shall be based on sound instructional theory.
That's what would be new.
Oh, we should not do that. So, I'm curious about this is this something is like a permanent approach, the differentiated development, or is it ultimately the goal to sort of, for lack of a better term, mainstream
Well-
EL English learners?
And Angie can chime in here, but all the new curriculum comes with supports for EL students, and those are leveled supports targeted for them. So beginners might have a workbook that goes with the unit that they're teaching, for example, in language arts, that then a beginner who's just learning English, it's very pared down and might just focus on just vocabulary and that sort of stuff. So it's really built into the programs these days.
Okay.
Would you agree?
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right, Jane, you had 62.
Yeah, so the new in the middle, staff development shall also address the socio-cultural needs of English learners and provide opportunities for teachers to engage in supportive, collaborative learning communities. Well, we are doing, but it's optional paragraph. I'm a little concerned about what, it's so non-specific,
And taking staff development time.
yeah.
Yeah, I had it circled with a question mark too.
So can we not do that new paragraph?
Yeah, I'm fine with it too, because I also think we have, we have limited staff development opportunities, and we may, 1 year decide that's great and another year not, and don't want to again be in a position of having committed ourselves to a particular subject.
I think this is covered elsewhere too, frankly.
Right.
The equity in other places.
Okay. My next one is 78. So-
73. So this, I'm looking back, does not look optional.
Yeah, that's
Which
probably,
page?
Page 73.
Oh,
yeah, the language acquisition program starts at the bottom of 72. Yeah.
So,
I think that's the only reason I didn't highlight it was because I didn't see the word optional.
this could be, this could be, quite a expensive,
Process.
right,
If somebody demands a certain language, like German,
oh, is that what it's saying?
Doesn't
Language
it?
acquisition is EL learners, I think, English learners.
right, learning
But
English.
it's putting the, it sounds to me like basically 30 parents could say, well, we don't like what they're doing, we want you to do this one. But parents aren't really experts at what, I mean, not that we wouldn't listen to a group of 30 parents coming together and saying, this isn't working for our children.
Mhm.
Yeah,
But
but as I'm reading this thing at the bottom of 72, the districts are required to establish a process to respond to these requests.
I'm just reading that too, but it doesn't say that this has to
It
be
doesn't
the
say this is the
process.
process, no.
So the process could be that they could submit a request and we could review that request. I'd be fine with
shall
that.
monitor requests. Okay. If the requests are for a multilingual program, all the district shall consider requests if there are at least 30 students who want to participate. Okay, which we, again, I think we're good at listening.
Right. Although it does say, if you keep, the following section includes the components of the process required by 5 CCR. And may be expanded to reflect district practice.
Okay, all right. I was reading it, I didn't realize it's the request, we'll monitor the request, we'll listen to the request, we'll respond to the request. Okay.
But hey, if there's an opportunity, you know you have my vote to delete stuff.
Yeah, it actually looks like all of this is
Oh, I really think it's an issue. By the way, when we get to the end of this, I've got Shelley's notes, so we'll start at the beginning.
Did you say 75 or 76?
78, do you have,
Oh,
what do you have?
76. It says okay, like I guess we already have this, but advisory committee is, COPA is not an advisory committee, so it doesn't sound, I don't think we have one.
We do. Each school site does. An advisory committee, ELAC,
Oh, okay.
yep.
And DLAC?
Shut my
And
mouth.
DLAC. So DLAC is district level, and that's what COPA essentially is, and then
Right.
each site has an ELAC committee. Yeah, we do.
Oh, and I missed that one little paragraph that's optional.
The LPAC?
Yeah, right. But we'll monitor students for at least 2 years following their reclassification, but I think we
We
do
do
that.
that. We absolutely do that.
Well, good, Jane, I'm glad you've had some things in there that I wasn't just. All right, yeah, 78 through 82 is another optional section on bylaws, which just says that we're going to write policies, right? So it goes
Our
on for,
policies will align with our vision and goals.
yeah.
Why would we wanna do that? Policy development adoption process. Yeah, see, I mean, for me, we're doing this, so I didn't have a problem with it, but I don't have a problem removing them either.
Any other thoughts?
I'm perfectly happy to maintain what we have.
Yeah, I'm fine with the existing policy.
So should we eliminate the new?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or just, again, I mean, I think it's, like as
Remove-
Kathy was saying, it's more complicated to say, let's eliminate the new, but say, we're just not touching this one.
Okay, yeah. We won't touch this, just leave it as it
We're
is.
leaving 9310 as it currently is.
Right.
Adopted.
Yep.
Previous years.
Right. Okay.
I mean, and as to the prior ones on which we're doing the same thing, right? Or did we actually, in some, did we, this is not, by the way, this is the first reading.
That's right, yeah,
so,
that's right.
I mean, I think we can align all of those and say just we maintain them as they are, right?
Sure.
Well, those are.
Don't go back, we already went through.
Well, we eliminated some
Yeah.
altogether? Okay, I'm
We
fine
were
with that.
gonna
Yeah,
eliminate
I'm good with that.
Because I was just going with your suggestion of if we had unlimited time to go through everything and
Yeah.
eliminate all the junk.
So to be clear, though, those which we are not making any changes to will not come back to you at the next meeting, because we won't be asking you to take action. You know, your request here to actually remove it from these policies will be the directive to us.
Okay.
But Kathy, you don't need to reprint these out and give it to us.
No.
Okay. Great, thank you.
We're gonna get 2 copies for Jane, please. A copy for the car and one for the house.
Thanks. We did an excellent job working together. Thank you. 7.5.2, Tiffany asked that we schedule this for when she's with us.
I'm happy to
Any?
do that.
Okay. 7.5.3, moving the May 8th meeting to May 6th. Any objections to that?
I'll move to approve the rescheduling to
I'll
May
second.
6th.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's
You guys
unanimous.
were just talking as if it had been, I was thinking, oh, they must have dealt with that before I got here, because I put it in my calendar, because someone
Oh.
mentioned the May 6th meeting.
I think
Oh,
it's
yeah,
already in
sorry.
my calendar
Yeah.
too, so, yeah. Superintendent's report.
This is going to be brief, and it's actually just a news alert. I'm very excited to share, if you've not already heard, that we had partnered with Sierra Watershed Progressive, Regina Hirsch, and her team a number of months back, along with a number of other entities in the Ojai Valley, to submit a grant to the state for a number of projects that would help with with our watershed when it comes to water retention and replenishing the ground basin. We just found out that this Ojai Valley Consortium is one of the funded entities in the order of $1.7 million for water projects in the valley. Thatcher School, Ojai Unified with Matilaha and Myers Oaks being our 2 sites. The inn, they're working on making some changes to the golf course to have it be slightly more California drought tolerant type plants as opposed to look like England.
Gravel greens? Is it?
Don't know about that. Maybe, well. So it's really exciting. Again, we appreciate the city helped take lead on kind of organizing this group, and it's really Regina Hirsch, who we've used in the past as well with some of our grants up to the state. But this is the first one that got funded, and it got funded in a big way. We're the 3rd largest recipient in the state for this program. And so we don't know yet the specifics of how much is going to be coming to us of that amount. It's going to be significant. It'll supplement Measure J at those 2 sites. And it's going to help us with both paving as well as some of the roofing projects when it comes to the way in which we capture the water that runs off. So it certainly is going to bring 6 figures to our schools and to our district. So really exciting that we got that.
Nice, thank you. Great, anything from board members? Board member reports?
I didn't do anything currently interesting.
I think you're doing a lot that's interesting, actually. Items for future agendas. We have the civics. All right, consent calendar.
I'll move to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you. Board members, thanks for our union representatives for hanging tough with us. We're a good team here, and we will adjourn until next time.